everybody. It's Monday, October 10th, and that means it's time for another episode of Nonprofit Conversations. I'm your host, Cecilia Sepp. I'm a certified association executive, and I'm the principal and founder of Road Tulips Consulting. Today, I am really excited to welcome back Rachel Clemens, the Chief Marketing Officer of Mighty Citizen, because last June, Rachel came on the show and she talked with us about the Mighty GPS, which is a no-fee tool for all nonprofit organizations, higher education, and government. So Rachel's back today to share with us the nonprofit marketing data snapshot. Welcome back, Rachel. Would you like to say hello and tell us a little more about yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Rachel Clemens. I'm the CMO at Mighty Citizen, and we serve mission-driven organizations with their digital, their branding, their marketing. So things like campaigns, messaging, branding, websites, anything communications related.
Oh, that's great. And I'm so glad to have you back. I've been looking forward to this conversation. And before we dive in, I would like to say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to our global audience, wherever you may be. And thank you so much for joining us. I think this data that Rachel's going to share with us is going to be useful to everyone, no matter where you practice nonprofit. So Rachel, can you remind the audience what the Mighty GPS tool is?
Yeah, so the Mighty GPS, for any marketer out there, one of the questions we always want to know is my marketing working? And that's a really hard question to answer, even with all the technology that's out there. So Mighty Citizen developed something called the Mighty GPS. It's a free self-assessment that allows you to score your marketing maturity or your effectiveness. It's on a score of 0 to 100. It's going to tell you, how effective your marketing is, where you can improve, your areas of opportunity, and then also your areas of strength so that you can optimize those things that are working and maybe put a little more emphasis into the things that aren't. So it's basically, our data showing it takes about 6 minutes. We always say it's under 10 minutes. It's about 6 minutes, about 40 questions across 6 different marketing categories.
And I have to say, I did use this tool. I was one of the beta testers, but I found it really useful for my own consulting practice. So if you are a consultant to nonprofits, you might want to check it out too. And you get a really nifty report that tells you where you are in your arc of marketing. So Rachel, how many nonprofit organizations have used it so far? And can you share with the audience how many of them are membership organizations versus maybe community service organizations or foundations or charities, basically C6 versus C3?
Yeah, so we've had about 320 organizations overall take it. About 200 of those are in the social services or 501c3 category, and about 60 of them are in the association or membership organization category. So they are self-selecting into those categories, but yeah, the majority has been nonprofit / 501c3, and then about 60 are in the 501c6 categories.
Now, have you seen any real differences between the C6 and C3 groups? Like, is one doing more with less or better in one area than another?
Yeah, so what's interesting is when you take the Mighty GPS, there's 6 categories of marketing. And let me just outline those real quick. Those are research and analytics, branding and strategy, marketing and SEO, UX design and content, technology, and team dynamics. So those are the 6 broad categories. It's meant to touch on all the different aspects of marketing. And then there's a total score that averages all those together. When you think about the differences between, social services and membership orgs, they're actually, the total score is for membership orgs, it's 57.74. That's the average score. For social service orgs, it's 57.63. So they are so close in terms of their overall score, in terms of, on a scale of 0 to 100 for marketing maturity. Where they differ is in each of those little categories. And the differences, because the averages are so close, really aren't that huge, but they are slightly different. So for example, across all of the organizations that have taken the Mighty GPS, that research and analytics category is by far our lowest scoring category. Most organizations are in the 30s as far as their score for research and analytics. They either aren't doing it, or they're not doing it often enough, or they're doing research but not doing anything with the research that they're gathering. So as out of everyone that's taken every category of of organization that's taken the Mighty GPS, the membership organizations have the highest research and analytics score. So they have a 40, still isn't high, right? But it's higher than all the others. And I think that's because, you know, associations and membership organizations are in the business of educating their members. And so they have to do that just by nature of their mission. They have to do more research than the others have to do, even though they should all be doing it.
Well, exactly. And you and I, as we were talking before this episode, that is one of the things I have always expressed concern and sometimes frustration about is the lack of analysis of the data that's available so that you can actually use it for something. We all collect data all the time, and none of us are going to be 100% in using it or analyzing it. I think we all know that. But I think a 40, I'm just going to say it as a longtime nonprofit executive and management professional. I find that a little disappointing that it's not at least 50. But, you know, we got to walk before we run, right? And that's actually one of the things that the categories, I believe, are like walking, running, flying, right?
When you get a score, it puts you into one of 4 stages, and they're crawling, walking, running, or soaring. So at 40, they're just barely in walking. The social services orgs are still in crawling for research and analytics. So yeah, the 40 is the cusp of crawling and walking.
Yeah. Okay. Well, okay. So we're on the cusp. That's good. Because if we're on the cusp,
I mean, we have moved over into walking. Technically, we are 0.47% over.
I just love, but I do love though that overall, you said overall the scores are a little bit over 57%.
Yeah, they're solid walking. So walking runs from 40 to 60. And a lot of organizations, you know, in that space, they're doing a lot with a little. So quite often it's a smaller team that's up and running. They're doing really well for the size of their teams. They're facing the fact that quite often in the walking stage, an organization is doing things they have always done because they've always done it. They're you know, what they're doing is generally working. If you're walking, you know, you're up and running, or you're up and running, you're not running, but you're up and moving. And there can be this momentum that just kind of carries you forward and continuing to do things. But organizations that are in that walking stage kind of have to go, are the things we're doing actually effective? You know, we're doing a lot, and we're doing a lot with the few resources we have, but are we maximizing those resources?
See, and I think you explained that very well, Rachel, that overview of walking, you're moving, but you probably are just doing the same things you've always done. And that's an easy habit to fall into. I might sound a little harsh sometimes when I say, oh, I'm so frustrated because it's been going on for years. And that this is the way we've always done it trope that is just everywhere in the nonprofit world. Well, that's the way we've always done it. That's a mindset that I hope tools like the Mighty GPS will help us change the way we look at things when we can see an actual place where we are. And that's why I love this tool. And yes, audience, this may sound like a sponsored commercial placement, but it is not. It is because when I see a good tool and good people providing it, I like to share that news. This is a good tool because it will show you if you're walking or running or crawling, and crawling's okay. All 4 of these things get you where you want to go. It's just sometimes it takes you longer. And so looking at the fact that people are doing these things, I think is good. Because marketing, and then you and I had the conversation last time you were on the show, marketing versus communication. Which one is it? Is it marketing? Is it communication? What is it? And I don't know if you found any insights from the data you've collected so far about this, but do you think that people in the nonprofit world are still a little hesitant about marketing because it sounds too much like selling?
Yeah, that's funny. We had that conversation where we both sort of said we think marketing and communications are one and the same, right? They're sort of half dozen of one and 6 of another. But I don't see that so much anymore, and I feel like it's under-resourced. So I don't think enough people or money is given to marketing and communications because it is so critical to everything that's so important to these organizations. But I also think that's sort of the nature of business. Like, it's, I don't know, it should be the star and it's not, but I'm also a marketer, so I'm a little bit jaded for that. So I think that's less of a problem than it used to be, but I do think it's still a problem. As far as like the category, so we have a category called marketing and SEO, and it's really about like digital ads, which are so big right now, especially after COVID or, mid-COVID, however you look at it. Search engine optimization. So positioning your, when someone searches for you or for something like you on Google and you come up, high up in the search results, or it's also around setting marketing goals. They tend to actually score pretty decently. That category scores pretty well. It's actually the research and analytics that's the lowest. And then, well, actually marketing is the second lowest, and but it's not that far off. It's in the 57 range for both of them. So, they're averaging about where they're scoring overall. They're in walking. So I'm not seeing that from the data. I'm not seeing that they're putting that way lower. I'm seeing that they're putting research and analytics way lower.
That's interesting because I think we both would agree. I don't want to make an assumption, but if you want your marketing to work, you do have to analyze your data.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. For sure. I mean, the thing about research, when I keep pounding the research, is because if you can get the research done and really understand your audiences, the rest of these categories is much easier, right? If I know the words that my audiences are using to describe my mission, and I know what they want to do when they encounter my website, it makes everything else so much easier to work on. Like, I don't have to reinvent the wheel every time I go to create an email. I'm saying the same message over and over because I know that's what resonates with that particular audience.
Well, and I think, that guides us toward the topic of market segmentation. And I don't know if the Mighty GPS tool really helps you with market segmentation, but I think it maybe can reinforce the need for it.
Yeah, I mean, that's all part of that research category. You're going to see that that's lower. We talk about personas and as part of that audience or part of that research and analytics section, where you take, any one organization could have, like, let's say 7 different audiences. For example, if you're a social service organization, you've got donors, you've got major gift donors, you probably have some lapsed donors. I mean, within the donor category alone, you could have 3 or 4 different kinds of audience buckets, right? And so personas are building little descriptions of each of those audience types, what drives them, what they're interested in, what they want to do when they encounter you, whether or not they may donate. So that's just donors. From a social service org, you might also have clients, volunteers. There's just so many different ways you can slice and dice your audiences.
Well, and you definitely need to have a specific message for each group of people. Yeah. So, and I'm just going to use this as a real world example because it is. So I'm a consultant member at ASAE. And so, I get my annual dues renewal notice every year, like everybody else, and those come by email. Well, my email earlier this year was the same email everybody else got. And it's cited as one of the benefits of my membership, access to consultants. And I looked at it and I'm like, oh, come on. I don't expect an individual message for every single person who's a member, because I'm not sure how many members ASE has right now, but they have a lot. They have tens of thousands of individuals.
Do that.
So I sent a note back and I said, hey, I don't expect to get a Cecilia specific message, but how about a consultant specific message? And so it was actually Amy Hemphill at ASAE was very nice and wrote me back. And she said, oh, that's a good point, and I am going to work on that. And she did. So when I got my reminder email to pay, it was specific to that membership category.
Fantastic.
So she was very responsive, and I really appreciated that. And that's the thing, is like, even the smallest of staffs can do that kind of a broad message to your segment. So whether it's a top, major gift donor or somebody who gives you $20, you can have a specific message for each group. And I think that's something that this data can support that moving forward.
Yeah. Technology makes it so much easier now, if you can get your hands on the tech.
That's right. And if you can learn how to use it, because I know sometimes that's another issue.
Yes.
It's a whole other show, it's like, how do we get people the training they need when they get the new technology, because technology does so much more than we even know a lot of times. And I think that's why organizations, yes, I'm very wildly off topic for a moment. That's why organizations start what I call patchwork quilting their tech. I don't know how to use this part. I'll just add on something else. And it's like, no, you don't need to. It's right there.
We call that
So
Frankensteining.
you call it Frankenstein.
Yeah, you can picture it, right? All the new nuts and bolts going on.
It's even better because you're just putting together body parts and hoping it'll walk and talk, right?
Yeah.
Without That's really fun. But let's pull it back to this data, because another question that I have for you is this tool. You also collected some data about higher education, which is not really a nonprofit
Right.
organization, and also some government agencies could have access to this. Did you see anything comparable or just, downright interesting when you look at those groups versus nonprofit groups?
Yeah, they're actually scoring lower than the nonprofits. Yeah. And that is surprising because you think of those orgs as having more money, right? But they're really hurting in the research and analytics again. And then they're also hurting, especially from an education perspective, they're hurting in the technology area. And I think part of that reason is because, if you think about higher ed, so I'm in Austin, Texas, University of Texas, literally 2 miles straight south of me. That org is so big that their technology is just disparate. It's that same problem we've talked about, right? If you're the law school or some other college working in the university, you maybe don't own your own technology. There's a lot you don't own. You don't own the brand. You've got to work with those things, and maybe those things are good and top quality, but you have this little portion of them. And so I think it just makes it harder on them from that point of view. The other area that nonprofits scored much better than at least the government, which maybe I don't know if this is a surprise. The team dynamics component is the last category. And it's really asking things like, do you have buy-in from your leadership for marketing and communications? Do you have an adequate budget? Does your team have a variety of skills? And so those things, that's actually the highest scoring category for nonprofits and higher ed, but not for government. So I don't know if that's a huge surprise, but.
I was going to say, unfortunately, I don't think it's a surprise. I live in Montgomery County, Maryland, and we pay high taxes, but we also get really darn good services for it from our county government, because our county government is well educated. Everybody seems very professional when you call them. They have good customer service, and they're really good at getting you to the right person and getting you the right information. And so in the little microcosm of the world where I live, the government works pretty well, and a lot of stuff's online. But I do know there's parts of the country that it's not quite so organized, and it doesn't surprise me. I mean, also living in a suburb of Washington, D.C., I see a lot of what goes on at the federal level, and they're like completely disorganized when it comes to technology. Every agency uses something different. I had a neighbor who worked in one government agency and was telling me of her frustration of she couldn't even email colleagues in another agency because they use different email platforms or something. And that's email. They can't even talk to each other. So, that doesn't surprise me so much because government works really differently than the rest of us for a lot of reasons, because they exist for a different
And when you
reason.
think about, I'm sorry, Cecilia, when you think about, when you think about your question about marketing being a dirty word, it is absolutely, that's the one area that it's still definitely a dirty word is the government area. They don't even talk about marketing. Maybe it's communications, mostly it's public service, right? So they don't have marketing people on staff. There's not titles within government really where there's a marketing title. It's like a public service officer, public information officer. So that is one area where, they definitely see a distinction. I don't know. I think it's fuzzy now for everybody else.
But, that's an interesting point, Rachel, because I think if the government would embrace a different attitude toward marketing, more people could get the help they need. My neighborhood has a community listserv. We call it listserv. It's a groups.io group, but Listserv seems to be a word everybody recognizes, but somebody posted asking for help about how to help her elderly neighbor help her. Let me say that again. I've only had 2 cups of coffee today. Help her elderly neighbor find the social service help she needs to get through her day. And it's very difficult to find those things. And so despite the fact we do live in a county that has pretty responsive staff, it's just hard to get through to the right person sometimes. And so imagine if the local governments marketed, here's where you can find this, here's where you can find that. And they do well in some areas, but it seems to be like whatever the flavor of the month is. They don't do it for the whole program.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. I mean, they're doing so much. I think it's hard to say where to emphasize, but there's definitely that's the thing with all of no matter your results, there's some low hanging fruit, that can be picked up that would do wonders.
But, but then again, I guess if you're government, you don't think about marketing because you don't really have any competition.
Right.
It's not like you can go to a different government and where, right? Your government.
It's true. It's true. Going one place.
That's funny. But so, we're unfortunately already at the end of the episode. It's been a great, really fun conversation. I really enjoyed it. So as you know, Rachel, we always like to ask our guest, what is the one thought you would like the audience to take away today? And if they wanted to learn more about the Mighty GPS tool, how could they find that? And then how can they get in touch with you if they have more questions?
Sure. So let's see, I'm going to tackle each one of those in a row or in order. The one thought I'd want to leave with is marketing effectiveness is really hard to measure. We think we've made a tool that allows people to do that, and not just to measure yourself, but then to understand where you line up against your peers. So if you're a nonprofit and you scored a 54, you're just slightly below your peers in terms of their averages. And we'll be releasing more data on each of like nonprofits and member organizations. We'll be releasing data points for each of those next year. It's already October, so close. The Mighty GPS, if people are interested in that, they can visit themightygps.com. It's free tool. Again, just a reminder, it takes less than 10 minutes. We'll give you a marketing maturity score. And then if you want to reach me, I'm available at hello@mightycitizen.com. So just shoot us an email if you have any questions. We're also very open to feedback on the tool. So if people take the tool and the results don't seem quite right, or they have questions, definitely going to be responsive in answering those, because, just like everything else in marketing, you can't set it and forget it. We're constantly iterating and improving.
Right. Well, that's great. Well, thank you so much, Rachel. I just want to say again to the audience, this is not a paid sponsor thing. I just think this is a really good tool, and I have used it. I checked it out, and check it out for yourself. And you might be surprised at your results, because I was surprised. I was doing better than I thought I was.
Yeah, I was going to say, Cecilia's doing great. She's running.
Yeah. So far. Fingers crossed. Let's hope that continues. Well, Rachel, thank you so much. Everyone, I want to thank my guest, Rachel Clemens, Chief Marketing Officer of Mighty Citizen. They do a lot to help organizations of all types, specifically focusing on our nonprofit community. So check them out. If you would like to learn more about Rogue Tulips Consulting, you can learn how we can help you bloom outside the box at roguetulips.com. If you are a current CAE or a professional seeking the CAE designation and you're looking for education or study groups, check out our education program, the 501c League, at the website, the501cleague.net. And I want to again thank you all for joining us this week. And on behalf of Rachel and myself, we have to go rogue for now, but I'll be back next week with another exciting episode. See you then.